Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. It's been a tough 18 months for a lot of people. The COVID pandemic has been a global health crisis, but for many, it has also triggered an economic one. We're talking the day-to-day stuff here, right? Food, a roof overhead. The pandemic has certainly exacerbated and highlighted problems that were going on long before we ever even heard the word COVID. And one of those is the cost of housing.
I think affordable housing is very hard in Charlotte. Yeah, there is a lot of people struggling, yeah. But the cost of living is very high. It's frustrating to find somewhere to live because you have to have somewhere to live, of course, and then if you don't make enough money, where are you going to go? Can't live on the streets, can't live in your car.
Now, we've talked a lot about affordable housing, and typically this is for people who make about 60% of the area's median income. In Mecklenburg County, that would put you at about $38,000 a year. But there's another group of people struggling to make ends meet. Working professionals just starting their careers. A lot of millennials and Gen Zers fall into this category. And many were forced to move back in with their parents last year because they simply couldn't afford their rent.
I know about half my friends are living with their parents or had to give up their apartments because they don't know how they're going to pay rent next month. You were a complete independent adult, had a career you were really proud of, and an apartment you were proud of, and then it's all whisked away in a matter of days.
80% of millennials earn $50,000 or less a year. Now, nationally, the average monthly rent, $1,474. Factor in taxes, somewhere around half of their monthly pay is going toward rent, and that is considered cost-burdened. So we're talking about people landing their first job. We're talking about police officers, school teachers, firefighters, exactly. People doing everyday jobs, having a difficult time finding something affordable.
Yeah, they haven't even formed families in many cases. Sure. And so they're looking more for one and in some cases two-bedroom unit floor plan types. And they really need to be close to major job centers, close to major urban amenities.
Last year, the Mecklenburg County State of Housing Report highlighted this as a growing problem. And here's a graph that shows the percentage of households that were cost-burdened each year. Each line that you see here represents a different income bracket. And the number of people making between, right here, this yellow line, $35,000 to about $50,000 a year who are cost-burdened has more than doubled since 2010. And that's where this term essential housing comes in. It's that in-between, right? You have the luxury housing on one end, affordable housing on the other. It's a term for people making between 60 and 140% of the area's median income. So in Mecklenburg, roughly, say, between $40,000 and $90,000 a year. They don't qualify for subsidized housing, and they can't afford the luxury stuff. And it can be hard to find that something in the middle. Now, developers are looking for ways to meet the rising demand for housing in this essential housing category. It can be made more difficult in a city like Charlotte, right? We're growing fast and land values are skyrocketing. So developers say they are looking for ways to keep costs down. Todd Williams, you heard him there a minute ago. He's the chief investment officer at Grubb Properties. One of their buildings is Link Apartments Montford. It's an area of town where rents can average more than $1,500 a month. Link units can be a couple $100 cheaper than that. Williams says they are trying a couple of things to keep construction costs and, as a result, rents down. One is to simplify floor plan offerings. Instead of, say, 15 different layouts in a building, there might be 6. Another centers around parking.
Typically, a parking garage for an apartment community that we build will range anywhere from $25,000 per unit on upwards to as much as $50,000 per unit per space.
I just want to underscore that, if I understood you right. So between $25,000 and $50,000 per unit cost is just in parking.
In this particular project, because the parking, we were able to build the parking above ground, it's on the lower end of that cost. But sometimes when you have to do underground parking, it gets very expensive. And so what we look for is lots of opportunities where where we can be creative about parking. For example, you're sitting in a project right now, Link Apartments Montford, which has a parking garage that's shared with a next-door office building. That works exceptionally well because office can park during the day, and the multifamily, the apartments can park during the evening. And it's really the two best asset classes for sharing.
Do you own both spaces, or are you working on some sort of lease agreement with them? How's that work?
No, we own both buildings, and that's really what makes it very effective and efficient, is when you can pair those types of uses together. That's actually saving us about $6 million of upfront capital cost to the cost of our housing project.
See, I always thought maybe a big percentage of these rents was tied up in sort of this arms race of amenities, right? You know, pools and spas and, you know, things for your dog and all those sorts of things. How does that compare?
It's absolutely the arms race or the space race, whatever you want to call it. It's a race towards what amenity can we add. And what we've done is we've said, look, let's focus on the amenities that really matter, that make a difference in their life. And so if not owning a vehicle allows them to afford a location closer to jobs and closer to amenities and closer to transit, then let's create amenities that cater to help that. So one of those, for example, for us are cycle centers. Cycle centers are effectively bicycle storage facilities on steroids. We've really pumped up the volume in our cycle rooms, not only to add additional space, but to add all sorts of additional amenities for the bicycling resident.
Yeah, I was reading in the report here, right, that floor plans can be sort of uniformed, right? So you can build in a certain way that brings costs down.
And so if you walk onto an average apartment community, anywhere in the United States for that matter, but particularly here in Charlotte, most communities will have anywhere from, 12 to 50 different unit floor plan types. I'm a recovering architect, and I can tell you there is no way that that's efficient. It's not efficient from a design perspective. It's not efficient from a construction perspective.
So is it as simple as, the counters are going to be uniform, I can get them at a better price. The cabinets are going to be uniform, I can get them at a better price, carpeting, etc.
Yeah, it's all those things. It's about also sizing the dimensions of the room so it fits standard lumber sizes. It's about really squeezing out inefficient space. So instead of entry halls, we kind of get rid of those. They're just wasted space in many cases, and we put them where it really counts. So even in our smallest units, which can get down as small as 364 square feet, they still have a walk-in closet, which is really important for our customer. They still have large vanities, so we have typically a 48-inch long vanity with an offset sink, so there's plenty of countertop space and a full bank of drawers underneath. And as a result, then, we can deliver rents that are anywhere from $150 and to some cases $600, $700 a month lower than our peers.
And one of their projects upcoming will have no parking really at all.